So thank you for attending. My name is Jim Young. I'm the program manager for what we call PTP, or the Permitting Transformation Program. It's also known as AccessDEQ. Next slide.
Yep, sorry.
It's all right. All good. Yeah, so we've got a couple of big business problems that we're trying to solve with this PTP program. And one of them is related to permit applications that are completed by the external community. They're all analog. So think of going online, clicking a link after you find what you're looking for, and you're downloading a Word document or a fillable PDF. Then you have to fill that out, sometimes sign it, sometimes notarize it, then send it to DEQ, and that might mean attaching it to an email, figuring out who to send it to, sending it in, and then if there's a fee involved, mailing in a check. So that's one of the big problems. We're still doing that, and we're trying to go digital. The second problem that we've got is aggregating data into actionable or meaningful information. That's pretty difficult to do when everything is analog and in silos. For example, if you wanted to ask, hey, how many underground storage tank diesel leaks reported in 2023 in Mecklenburg County were the result of a damaged spill bucket, that would take days, if not weeks, to figure out. You'd have to call the right people, have them go through and sift through a lot of data to find that information and then present it back. Whereas with a unified system that we're going to show you, those things can be done in seconds. Next. So this is how we fill out permits today. This is just an example of the DEQ website on the UST, the Underground Storage Tank forms page. There's something like 30 of these things on that screen. You can't see that, but you can just see the very top. But that's basically it, where you click and pull down that PDF, and it will display, will download a PDF with a lot of columns and fields that you have to fill out. There's lots of these things. Next slide. We've got something like 130 of these. You can see there's permit forms everywhere. And some of these permit application forms, these links here, some of them actually take you to an instruction sheet that then you have to then navigate to, click it, and then that'll take you to another site on the DEQ website where you would then actually download one of many different permits with a whole bunch of information to fill out and who to send the information to, etc. It's somewhat burdensome and complex. So this is what we are trying to solve with Dynamics. Next. So as the top part shows, this is what we don't want to do anymore. On the bottom part of that image is where we're going. We've got an external portal where the external community will go to, and it's a very linear and simple system. It's not meant to be complex. I mean, the people that go there don't live in the system, so it has to be simple. And it's very clickable, where you can just linearly click something, fill it out, and then you're done. The system will also have an area where you can upload documents, pay your invoices, renew permits, and so on. That system is being managed by a tool called Sitefinity. It's not the out-of-the-box portal within Dynamics. It's a separate product. It's just a lot richer, and for our purposes was a lot better. There is an intermediary tool called the portal connector. You can see that in the middle of that image on the bottom. That's a third-party tool that makes all the fields, the columns within Dynamics available to Sitefinity. So you don't have to recreate something within Sitefinity, which is like a content management system portal. It's just made available, and then you just can drag and drop those things onto your forms and your pages, and they're available. On the right-hand side, that's the internal system where all the workflows and processes are handled. when somebody from on the left side submits a form and makes its way into the right-hand side of that screen, which is basically handled by Dynamics. So that's all I've got from a high-level perspective of what we're doing. Mark's going to take it from here and show you really cool stuff.
Thank you, Jim. Hey, everyone. I'm Mark Stannard. I'm the applications manager at DEQ. And I am just so proud to be working alongside such a talented team on this project. I'm going to introduce the technology stacks supporting the DEQ data platform. And my focus this afternoon is on our Azure implementation of an enterprise data warehouse and analysis services. These are the four main components of the DEQ modern data platform. These four individual components function side by side and are tightly integrated together. The enterprise data warehouse component is hosted in Azure SQL Server. The EDW, as we call it, is optimized for data storage. So this is where we are centralizing all the DEQ data sources into one location and transforming that data, conforming it to an enterprise data model. The second platform component is the Azure Analysis Services. This is where the data is optimized for performance and reporting. Our developers, they build semantic data models in the cube that can be accessed and interpreted by the DEQ business units for the ease of reporting. In addition, we are able to build business logic and metrics that are validated and shared across the DEQ business units. So that helps with consistency. The third component is our analytics solutions built using the Power BI service. George will be showing some of our interactive visuals in just a few minutes. And then finally, last but not least, the AccessDEQ solution is the fourth platform component based in Dynamics in the Power Platform. And Katie's going to be providing a demo of the AccessDEQ solution a little later in the presentation. One of our biggest challenges is that DEQ has multiple existing data sources and applications that process permits, certificates, licenses, agreements, and other products using a number of different workflows and platforms. Applications for these permits are submitted to DEQ via mail and email, and the data is entered into various systems by DEQ staff. As part of our digital transformation, we are pulling the data from all these existing sources, breaking down the silos, and combining the data into an enterprise data model so that we can promote consistency across the enterprise. We are creating pipelines from these existing data sources that refresh the data stored in the data warehouse nightly. The data within the original data sources remains preserved and untouched. The data warehouse also makes the data available and cloud ready for Azure Analysis Services. Our first step with establishing the data warehouse was creating a common data model that can be used to store data from all environmental programs across DEQ. We performed some high-level analysis on our existing data systems and then created a baseline enterprise data model using fact tables and dimension tables, all of this based on critical and common data used across the DEQ enterprise. Once we made our initial pass-through analyzing data in existing systems, we started analyzing more detailed and program-specific data to include in the model. One of the examples here is that we created a land use restrictions fact table right here, fact LURU. And that was because when we started working with a very specific program in DEQ, they were maintaining this data in their existing system, and it was critical to their program. Might not be critical to all programs, but it was to them. So we went ahead and incorporated that fact table for them. So this shows that the data model is fairly, we can extend it, we can add as needed. Oops. We chose Azure SQL Server to host our enterprise data warehouse. One of the advantages of Azure is the security model, which leverages Active Directory groups, or now termed Microsoft Intra. We have Azure groups set up for managing the security and access to the SQL Server and databases. The top level admin group is highlighted here, and our SQL DBA accounts are added to this group. This then allows us to add and remove users and groups to our SQL servers. And it also helps us manage the permissions on these databases. We manage those permissions with these roles in SQL Server. For example, a DEQ power user who needs access to the EDW would be placed in the DEQ PTP guest Active Directory group. Once that user is logged into the VPN, they would be able to connect directly to the enterprise data warehouse tables with an application like Power BI Desktop and perform their own analysis and reporting directly from the raw data in the EDW. So I'm going to try and demo using Power BI Desktop, making this connection and just creating a simple visual. And this use case would be for what I would call a self-empowered data modeling and reporting user. All right, so bear with me just a second here. I'm going to pull this over. All right, so I'm starting fresh here in Power BI Desktop, and I just want to create a new report. So I'm a DEQ Power user. I'm logged in, as you can see here, and I just want to go and get data. And right now I'm connecting directly to the data warehouse. So I'm going to get data from SQL Server. All right, this is where I need a little bit of information here. So here's my server name that I'm connecting to. And I'm going to be importing the data. So this is typically what a Power BI user would do. You would connect to a data and you would import it into Power BI to do your own modeling and analysis. So I'm going to say OK. And remember, I was already in that guest group, and it recognized that through my login, my Windows login in Power BI. So once I'm connected to the server, I know which database to go to. And this is where you have to be familiar with the data warehouse to know what to pull in. And I happen to be familiar with it, so I'm going to come down here just for demonstration purposes and bring in the fact permit table. All right. I'm also going to bring in a couple dimension tables. I'm interested in dim source. Let's see, I'm also interested in, so this is the source where the data came from. I'm also interested in the status of the permit. And I think that's good for now. So I'm going to say load. This will take just a second. Of course, it was much faster earlier. All right, here we go. It's going to load in. All right, almost done here. Okay, so it loaded in and it'll show up right here. Promise you it was much faster earlier. Okay, so there's the 3 tables that I selected, and really quickly, I can start interacting with the data. So I'm just going to create a simple visual here, simple table visual. Just need to resize it a little bit. And I'm going to go in here and select a few fields in the fact permit table. I'm going to just do like permit number. One thing I'll show you while that's loading, if you hop over here to the modeling tab and look at the relationships, when I brought this data in, Power BI automatically recognized that the permit table was associated with the source table and also the status table. So that's kind of nice. All right, so we've got some data coming in. So now I'm going to, let's say I'm interested in the status of these permits. I'm going to maximize this. All right. And so I know that that comes from the DIM status table. And I'm just going to say, I'm going to bring this over a little bit. I'm just going to say a status description. And I'm also interested in the source. Where did this data come from? So I'm going to check the source description. All right. And then I'm interested in how many of these permits came from, or how many of these permits are active. All right. So instead of showing all of the permits here, I'm just interested in the active ones. So it's pretty easy to come over here and do a filter on the active permits. And Power BI Desktop is smart. It knows to filter that. All right. And then I'm just curious, like how many of these are active? Well, all you got to do is click in the summary is active, and it looks like there's 9,351 active permits that I've brought in. So this just shows really quick how we can connect to the data warehouse, and then we can start making sense of this data right off the bat. All right, back to the presentation. Couple more topics on the data warehouse. We're leveraging the Azure Data Factory to copy data between our cloud and on-prem data sources into the enterprise data warehouse. We have pipelines set up for our development, testing, and production environments. And here's a simple pipeline, simple example for what a data factory pipeline looks like. In this example, we're copying the tables and the data from one of our on-prem SQL servers and loading that data for each of the source tables into a staging location that will then later be used for inserting into the data warehouse. A key component for us to use Azure Data Factory was implementing a self-hosted integration runtime. We installed and configured the integration runtime on an Azure virtual machine, and we worked with the DIT cloud services and firewall team to connect the integration runtime with our source systems, which are protected by the firewalls. We also configured the cloud data sources with the integration runtime, which allows us to pull data from the AccessDEQ solution into the enterprise data warehouse. So these pipelines are set up and executed each night to pull fresh data from the various data sources and update the enterprise data warehouse. All right, so the second component to the DEQ data platform is the Analysis Services Cube. The Cube is our data processing engine in the cloud. This is where semantic data models are developed, which makes the data ready for reporting. The Cube presents the raw data that is stored in the data warehouse in a way that end users can understand. This allows for ease of data access and consistency in reporting. The Cube is designed to be fast and responsive when queried. It incorporates role-level security for our end users and allows for developers to create organizational measures and key metrics for the DEQ business units to leverage. Here's an example of a cube specifically designed for our erosion and sediment control program. You'll notice that the tables are named in a way that the program staff can recognize and understand. No more fact table, dimension table. We can also create organizational measures that can then be reused across multiple programs for consistent reporting. The cube can be set up with roles that manage the access levels for end users. Currently, we have a read-only role set up for this cube, and you can see that we can add individual accounts as well as groups and even teams for ease of access for user management. So using this setup, as long as I am in this team, this DEQ IT development team, I can have access to this cube. And we all know that managing teams memberships is pretty simple and straightforward. All right, so to wrap up my demo here, I'm going to show you a connection to the cube. So first we showed the connection to the enterprise data warehouse. So let me find my other Power BI. Sorry, my machine's running a little slow. Not that one. Okay. So it's very similar experience. I'm going to open a new report. Except this time, I'm going to get data from analysis services, not from SQL Server, but from analysis services. All right, so it's asking for where to connect. So I'm going to drop that in. And notice that I'm not importing data this time. I'm connecting live. So that's kind of a key concept here. All right. So we've got two cubes set up. One is for our entire permitting transformation program, but we are also developing unique cubes for each program. So our erosion and sediment control program cube is right here. And all we got to do is select that, hit OK. And it's going to pull in all the tables. Notice I did not have to pick and choose like I did before. It's just going to bring in the entire model. All right. And so you'll see here a little bit different experience. The tables are named nice. I'm going to do very similar what I did before, except just a little bit different perspective. I'm going to bring in that table visual. All right, and I'm going to bring in permit application details. So these are the applications that are being pulled in. And I'm going to do something like application, let's see. Oops. Permit application. Yeah, so I'm going to do permit application first, not the details, but permit application. And I'm going to pull in something like a permit number. Actually, sorry, let's see. Yeah, it's permit application number, permit application status, and then I'm going to look at another table here. Source, yep. And then I can leverage these metrics here that have already been predefined for me. So if I go to the permit table and look at total permits, let's just do draft. Oops. So I can see here that there is only 1,887 draft permits out of all this. But if I wanted to look at another type of permit status like active, there's 9,300 active permits out of this whole table. So the point I'm trying to make is using the cube, we can access these predefined measures, which really streamlines our reporting. And it also ensures consistency. When one program reports, it's the same as the other program that reports. All right. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to George, who's going to show you some of our interactive visuals and using the Power BI service.
Thank you, Mark. George LeCarn, data architect for the Enterprise Data Warehouse. And what I'm going to do is just take you on the journey of some of the tools and the ways we offer the information to the users. And one of the ways that Mark emphasized was we like to do exchange groups as a method for providing access. So I figured I'd just show you the true day in the life of that, and it'll literally be 30 seconds. But this is an example of energy, minerals, and land resources group within DEQ. And you can see that there's 33 members that we've added to that group. We have other groups that are part of this, and really we've established a naming convention here to make it easy. So you can see land resources is here. We got water resources. We have water infrastructure, waste management. So instead of having to go onesie twosie and adding users, randomly, we can kind of do some planning, gets these groups established, as well as our internal support groups. And as people come in and out of the organization, we just add them to the group instead of having to do it the hard way. So, and then these groups, as well as team groups, can be added to an Azure Analysis Services to provide access. So I wanted to show you that real quickly. That way you can kind of see really how it happens. And I'm going to just eliminate that. Now, we provide access to our users by publishing our solutions to what's called a Power BI app page. And so this is an example of a Power BI app page. This is our production page. We also have a sandbox or development page, so that when we do UATs or data validation or development, we can kind of try things out here in the sandbox. But if I open up the production, remember the groups and adding members to the groups, this app page also has what's called audiences. So I can have this page be visible to land resources and the 3 or 4 applications we want them to use, but then I can choose another audience and only give water resources 2 or 1, depending on what their need is. And I can then create a new audience, and all I have to do is register that group, that set of users to this audience. But I wanted you to see that because it's a real nifty way of providing, access and enhancing their user experience. Okay, everything is integrated, and you're going to see that, and I'm going to emphasize that quite a bit. So in this particular app page, we have in the menu here, dynamic CRM, which is the AccessDEQ systems of record where they do all of their workflow work and CRM work. And if I launch it, it launches in its own window. I have it configured to just launch in its own window. And you can see any number of subject areas are organized in PTP. And that'll be touched on in much more detail by Katie Tobin after me. But I wanted you to see that we can launch it from that portal. So we consider this app page a portal. Another application that we offer the users is, as we do analytics work, data warehouse work, we prefer to source our information, of course, from systems of record, right? Maintained, backed up, professionally developed systems of data. And so when we encounter manual processes or processes that are a little clunky, we always try to move them to what we call our Microsoft Power Platform ecosystem. Okay, and so I'm going to show you a perfect example of that, where we had a couple Microsoft Access databases that were real tough to maintain and enter data. It was sort of the wild, wild west, and you could type anything. So we wanted to get them into a cleaner solution that we could source data from and also protect the data. So this is a model-driven app using Power Platform, and this is for erosion sediment control, and it's their notices of violations, which are cases where a project might be happening and they kind of went out of the bounds of what the regulations are, so they've been put on notice. And then there's also enforcements, which are a little stronger, which where they actually penalties are involved, and it's a little bit stronger than just a notice. But what I want to emphasize here is this Power Platform, we imported old MS Access databases into a single solution here. And so now when they use this system, we actually are loading to, this is a good example where we're using Power Automate data flows within Power Apps to load project IDs from a legacy system into this system, so they have a good, clean lookup. This is 43,000 project IDs that are loaded each night, and they're later used as they maintain data. And we've put a little visual cue here to say, hey, this notice is missing its project ID. Well, what we've done is allowed them to fix their data quality themselves. We read it back into this application. using Power Automate flows from the data warehouse. And then if we go here, you can see they can use this lookup and fix their own data. So now when they have a valid project ID, they have clean data that we can now read right back into their analytics. And so this is a case where we have field validation, more lookups, less freehand typing, and now we've created a stronger system of record, where it was a kind of a less modern, clunky solution. This is more compatible with all the other tools that Microsoft and the Power Platform stack of tools has. One nice feature about Power Platform as well is, in this model-driven app, is they have timelines. So now people entering information can add notations to each other on the record itself and attach meaningful information to that record. And so this is a case where the site development plan for that violation is also been attached, and then they can email this off to their peers. They could export it out to a Word document and send it off to the actual person involved in the violation and help remedy the situation. The other thing we did is, instead of typing violation codes and having to memorize things, we've created every violation that's possible, and given the person in the regional office the ability to visually see what violations are involved. So the message here is, we've used data warehouse information to read from a system source and clean up typos and create a nice solid lookup regimen. But then as they fix their information, it gets read back into the data warehouse for analytics, and so then they see the results, of their work as they create things in the system source. Okay, I wanted you to see that because it's a really nice feature of using tools within a single ecosystem. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll kind of show you how the Power BI tool is offered, in this app page as well. So by default, the app page opens with the analytics in this case, and this is the menu of subject areas that are part of the daily workflow. And so we want to have analytics that let them look holistically at all their information. And the message here is, if we look at permits as an example, we'll open permits. This is sourced off of the Azure Analysis Services Cube, which is nothing more than a semantic model, like Mark described, of facts and dimensions. This is predefined and it's set, and we've worked with the stakeholders, for this solution to deliver what they need, right? To really, go forward with analysis versus having to spend their time searching and gathering information. So it's really, instead of hunting for information, they're at the business of analyzing. So you can see along the left side here, these are filters, and we refer to them as slicers. And slicers are filters that can work across multiple pages. So that's the value of really having a slicer, is you can say, okay, well, this is a message too, is this solution is sourcing from two different systems of record, right? So we have iBeam, right, which is a historical system that we have that's still active. And then we have the new way with Dynamics CRM. And both of these are conformed and combined, integrated into one solution. So I can choose Dynamics as a source, and all the visuals and all the data changes in relation to what source I chose. If I switch it back to iBeam instead, then everything, changes as well. If I unselect it, then it's going to do both at the same time. This is done by carefully understanding that one system might have 7 statuses for permits because, in 20 years, that's how things evolve. But then another system might have 5. What we do is we conform and make sure that whatever historical system we have migrates or maps to the new way. Okay, so that way we don't have duplication of data. We have data that can be trusted, and there's no overlap in situations like that. So let me just take you through how our pages look. Every subject area has at least an overview, a trending, and a detail page, at least one detail page, okay? And then these are high level, these are called cards. These are counts of things. So counts of active permits, inactive, draft, and unknown, let's say. But as I navigate, so this is called guided navigation. And so as I navigate and choose things that are interesting to me, I can choose Asheville Regional Office and Washington Regional Office. And again, everything dynamically changes. And so now I can actually start getting some insights into the data that we have. Okay, that's interesting. This is how the permits are laid out in these 2 regional offices. But you'll notice if I were to expand this, I can go in a little deeper and really hone in on an area that I might be interested in. And you'll notice these bubbles, these are called tooltips. As I hover over a bubble, I can actually see some details about what I'm looking at geographically, okay? Furthermore, to get the details of that particular bubble that's showing up on that map. And so then I'm saying, okay, that's the permit number, and there's the application date. And this happens to be Poplar Chapel Church of Christ. And this is, where that sedimentation project is going on. And so now I can quickly and easily, get to the details about what that is.